We are back past the pilot, episode 11, and you have tuned in at the right point in time. Today, we're going to talk about something that I haven't seen myself. I'm really excited. I think it's called CLM, Contract Lifecycle Management. That's an
Correct.
that you, Johnny, were instrumental in building on the Vertesia platform. But before we dive into it, just a little bit on the feedback we got on the previous episode, which was really around some of the new features that we have in the pipeline, and people got especially excited about the agentic editing of documents and the advanced OCR, the intelligent document processing. So we're going to probably create some deeper dives on that, maybe one episode that goes deeper into those again once the features are out. But enough said about that. Let's get into it. Johnny, what is CLM? I'm really excited. I haven't seen it. Please blow me away because every time I see something new from Vertesia, it's like Christmas.
Yeah, so everyone loves this app, surprisingly. Maybe not surprisingly. Contract lifecycle management doesn't sound very exciting. Um, and what we've been able to do is create an application that is not just pulling out information from contracts upon ingestion, like metadata and all that, but actually providing intelligence based off of what's coming in. So it's extracting information from contracts, but then it's tying it to other systems, and it's kind of helping the business to understand what that means in their context. And so again, all
Oh,
this is
it's connecting the dots.
yep, and as everything is with Vertesia, it's fully customizable, fully configurable. If you're watching this and you're wondering, hey, could we do this? The answer is probably yes, because everything with Vertesia can be built very, very quickly. So I'll go ahead and share
Oh,
my
yes, please.
screen. Make sure I have that up. And so this is the application. Now, what we're looking at here is the intake screen. So there's a lot going on over here on the left, and we'll get into all of that. I like to start at the intake screen because this is where the whole process starts. And so how this works is a contract for a business comes into the business. It can come in, as you know, Steph, with Vertigo with a bunch of different ways. It can come in, through a file transfer, through an email, right, through
Right.
API. It doesn't matter how it gets into the system, but once it hits Vertesia, we have the ability to set up, rules that are specific to the business
Right.
that will analyze these contracts as they come in, specific to the business. So you're
So
picking
the
what you
intake
want.
automation, right? That's another topic I think we want to deep dive on. We have a new way of doing particular, very specific intake automation based on document, not just types, but content types, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. And this is a really good example of how that's actually put into use. So you can see, if you look here, you'll see these little pills or tags, right? Recommended approval, requires review medium, requires full review. These are all based on the business rules. Okay, so what is acceptable to one company might not be acceptable to another company. All of that can be set up really, really quickly. And what
Right.
that
When you
gives
say,
you,
sorry, just to ask that
yeah.
specific point. So when you say business rule, but this is not simply matching for a category or something. This is already an agentic intelligence making a decision what kind of document has been put into the ingest pipeline versus just like matching a field or something, right? Like a static business rule.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. So it's I would say the way to think about it is it's not just, matching something, or it's not just pulling something out. It's actually taking business rules in plain language and interpreting the contract against those, right? So if you were
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
if you were to say, hey, make sure, you know, this is in line with our compliance policy, right? And you give a person the compliance policy and you have them check the contract. There's a lot more than just simple matching, right? There's reasoning and things that have to go into that. So
Yeah,
all of that stuff is possible with
awesome.
this ingestion process. So it's a lot more than just a simple, extract the invoice
Yeah,
number, right? There's a lot
yeah.
more going on. So this is the first step. So it comes in, and I did want to show. Let me find the one that I wanted to grab. I wanted to show a contract just so you can see all of the information that's being extracted as soon as this comes in. So the way this would work is it would come in, right? And then a human could review it. So just because it's recommended for approval, right, a human still might want to see what's going on. So we have the full contract here that the user can see. We have all the metadata. This metadata, importantly, can be used not just here, but this can be used in other systems, right? So since we're an API first platform, we can extract the information and then make it available in other systems where users like to work. So there's this. You can obviously chat with it, so you can ask any questions. This is a 5-page contract for this demo, but in reality, these contracts are going to be, 100 plus pages. For the AI review, right? This is really, really important, and this is where the transparency comes in. If it says recommended for approval and it doesn't give me any insight into why it was recommended for approval, it's not very helpful because
Right.
how can you trust it, right? And so what this does is it shows you the different checks. There's 6 different checks here that were analyzed against this contract. And this is telling the user, right, this is why it was recommended for standard approval. This is a
Right.
pretty basic contract. There's nothing outside the norm here, right? And
And
that,
that's part of the business rule that we're looking at here, right? So you
yep,
define basically a termination clause needs to be within my standard range of X days, right? But
yep,
only under the condition that it has been whatever the conditions are, right? So it's doing that check as it's processing the document in the intake. Is that what you're
yep.
saying?
Yeah, happens as soon as it comes in, takes no time at all. Less than a minute, maybe minutes if it's complex, but takes no time at all done automatically. And I think the important thing is it's not that you're just blindly saying to AI, approve this contract or don't approve this contract. We built this in a way so that the human's still in full control, so they can see everything. They can come here, right? They can ask questions about the document. They can see the document itself. Um, so it's really meant to augment human intelligence when they're reviewing these contracts and do it much more quickly and also much more effectively, right? Because if you have a human reviewing a 100-page contract, the chance that they miss
Yep.
something can be pretty high, right?
Yep.
Um, I mentioned connecting to other systems, and so we have a couple cool examples here. You can see what we were able to do with this CRM account. All
Mhm.
right, obviously, demo CRM, not a real customer CRM. But what we're able to do is take identifying information from this contract and then find the account that it goes with, right? So this is a CRM. We can also do this for things like ERP systems as well.
Oh, wow. Wait, so one step back. So you have a document, you upload it into the CLM app here. So the intelligent Vertesia document intake automation makes sure it's checking and reasoning about the not just the category, but the type of the document, the validity of the information, how much you can trust it, and then it gives you a recommendation to either move forward with it or it needs review. But then now what you're saying is basically it will find references of
Hmm.
that document across your ecosystem of
Yeah,
other applications. So, for example, you have a CRM system like a Salesforce, or you have a Workfront system where wherever there's like a commonality by maybe an ID, a number, an account name, whatever that is, it's going to create those relationships dynamically. Uh,
yeah,
and
exactly.
how is that done? Is that like an MCP connection or something like that?
Yeah, so it depends on the system. It could be MCP connection, could be an API connection. But with Vertesia, the nice thing is you don't have to pick one or the other. You can do both. So if one
Mhm.
system is connected through an MCP and you're gonna, let's say there's an invoice ID number, right? A unique identifier for an invoice or a contract, and maybe in this example, it's it can use that MCP. The agent can pass that ID and extract all the information it needs from that system. Maybe they don't have an MCP and they just have an API, right? We can do that as well. We also have the ability, if maybe it's in a database and we want to connect to that database, we can do that, in the same way. And it's not that you have to choose one. You can do all of those methods uh, for this one application, right? And it's all configurable because no one business is going to be the same. Everything's going to have, they might have the same CRM, but they might have a different ERP, or they
Yes.
might have a different accounting
Yes.
system. Yep. And so I think when I think about past jobs I've had where this would be, because I always think about, this is cool that we're connecting this information, but how would someone actually use that? Right. And
Yeah.
I think if you think about all the different systems that businesses use and all the different logins and passwords that you need to get into it, right? So maybe you're reviewing a contract and you're like, oh, you know what? I need to get more information about this maybe I need to compare it to other contracts, or I need to
Yes.
compare it to the latest invoice we had or whatever, right? Well, now
This
I
is
have to go, I have to
amazing.
log into another system, right?
Yeah.
Now I have maybe a Word document on my computer or a scratch pad, and I'm writing down, okay, right, this has been active since 2025, and then I have to take that information, and now I'm logging into another
Yes.
system and I'm tracking all of it down. Right, that's where I think this gets really exciting. Is I'm not going to say you never have to, like, it's not, one system to rule them all, but you can grab the information you need that's relevant and pull it in to the application, right? And you can do it in a way that is intelligent and not just,
So
blind.
it's really creating this contextual horizon or expanding that,
Exactly.
right? It's like I always said, like, hey, the key to successful knowledge management is the contextual awareness of what lives around the document, whatever that is, right? And that could be a briefing, that could be a contract, that could be a meeting report, that could be whatever constitutes to the asset, in this case here, the contract, and whatever gives you a broader understanding of how it sits within your ecosystem of data and how you are able to traverse across different systems, which are all silos by now, right?
Yep.
So far, right? Salesforce, as great as it is, yeah, they probably promise you they can connect to anything, but guess what? You have to get it done. Now you have an assistant. Now you have an agentic AI platform with Vertesia that allows you to dynamically make those connections and find those connections across your application ecosystem in the organization. It doesn't look like much, but this is gigantic. Wow.
Something else that you just reminded me of, and it's a not good segue into what another thing I wanted to show is the context, not just across the business at a certain point in time, but the context of a given relationship or contract over the course of time, right? So how has
Mm.
this looked historically, right? How does this contract compare to the contract that this is replacing? And that's where we have key terms that we can version. And so if we come to, right, this version in 2025, December 18th, right, this was what this contract looked like. Okay. We can then go through the years, through the months, and we can see how this has changed, right?
Oh,
And so
this
this
is
is,
smart.
yeah, so this came about because there was the specific problem of, they would have a supplier or someone they had a contract with, and there would be a dispute, and they'd say, hey, when this was paid in 2024, the net terms were, or the payment terms were net 45, right? And then the person had to go, they had to dig through all this
Yeah.
information, they had to search their emails, and they had to find the exact contract and what that said, right? So this allows you to come in and say, well, actually, in 2025, the payment terms were net 60, right? And again, if I need to see the contract, I can do that, right? It's
Yeah.
not like I just have to blindly
So
trust
the
it.
source of truth is, of course, the document, but you are creating now an abstract. And I mean, this is amazing because it's not just a key term that you can compare here. It could be like a clause, right? It could be like something, not just a number. It could be a narrative in the contract
Yeah.
in legal language that, yeah, whoever understands that really, right? But you can start comparing that now from version to version, and probably then also give like a risk assessment
Yeah.
of sorts.
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring up a good point of, there's lawyers, right, and legal teams that review these contracts, but then there's also people who don't have, a bunch of legal expertise or haven't been to law school,
Mhm.
which I think is most of us, that don't understand, these contracts can be dense, they can be hard to read. And so another thing we can do is we can actually extract things from contracts like obligations, right? When you
Mhm.
think about a contract, it's
Yes.
all about obligations, right? It's what are you obligated to do? What are they obligated to do in return? And so this was brought up for the exact reason I was just mentioning, which is, you know, we want people to understand what this contract's agreeing to without having to read all of it, right? Without having to read 50 pages of legal right? Dense copy language. And so that's what we did here was we made it where upon ingestion, the contract in its entirety is being reviewed, and AI is selecting what are the actual obligations in this contract that we're agreeing to, and what's the penalty if those aren't met, and it's all displayed on the screen for that person, right? And so again, this is just another way to speed up the review process, speed up the
Yep.
understanding of contracts if there's a dispute in
Yeah.
the future. One other thing that's really, I think this, I saved this for last, I think this might be the coolest. What we're doing here is we're looking at the contract and we're looking at how that is playing out in reality. So, for example, you can see they committed to 4.9 million, right, in this contract, but we've only realized 4.5 million of that. And so this again was a specific ask from the customer we were working with here, where they said, we have a lot of contracts and
Oh.
they agreed to buy $10 million worth of widgets from us, and we want to track how that's progressing. And currently doing
That
that
would
is a
make
huge
sense.
pain because again, different systems you have to log into. You have to
Yeah,
see
yeah,
the
yeah.
contract, then you have to log in
Do a
the order
reconciliation.
management system, and you have to pull all that information, and then you have to manually compare it. And so this is all done
Wow.
automatically here, right? Because it's connecting to, in this case, an ERP system.
So, and this directly informs your procurement, right? For the next renegotiation of that contract, just like guys, yeah, you give us like a 10 million or a 4.9, but guess what? We only need 4.5,
Yep,
depending on the scale of the contract, on the magnitude of the contract. That's a lot of money that you can just save here. This is amazing. So is the idea that you would upload, you would not necessarily upload just the final contract, right? This is also for reviewing like drafts that you're getting,
yeah,
where maybe people who are not lawyers, as you say, are being asked to make an assessment on a new contract proposal that comes in, and then
yep,
being able to say like, hey, does this align with our overall strategy? Maybe our policies have changed, which you might not even be aware of because they sit somewhere in Salesforce.
yep,
Does that go along with our purchase volume, right? For example. And I'm now thinking, Johnny, maybe even back to last week's topic about the agentic document editing, right? Maybe that's an addition where you can say and go in and work on changing drafts in order to adjust the clauses and make a recommendation back to the contract partner. This is what we want
yep,
to change, right?
yep.
Oh wow. So this is really giving you a full picture.
Yeah, and so I don't know if you're doing this on purpose, Steph, but you keep leading into the next topic I want to go into
Oh, I'm
with
not doing
your
anything on purpose. I'm
so it's
fully
perfect.
in surprise here. This is freestyle, dude.
So if we
Nothing is
come
prep.
back to the intake screen, right, you'll see the start process. Okay. So it's not just the contract comes in and you have the information. Um, this is actually part of the review process. And so with the tracking where things are in their life cycle, you can see all of that in this life cycle tab right here. And so what this allows you to do is as now this is would be a bit of an admin view. But I can come in and I can see where every single contract is in the review process. So I can say, oh, this order form that came in, right? It's been executed, right? So I don't need to worry about that. If I come up to see Redwood Pharma generic supply agreement, I can see this has been with the category manager for 14 days. It was started 15 days ago. I need to follow up with the category manager. And so this basically allows you to see at a very high level everything that's going on with every single contract that's being reviewed. Uh, and so again, this was something that was very manual for the people we were talking to when we were building this, was trying to keep track of, right? Oh, this contract came in 30 days ago. Where is it? Right. And they were doing it by searching through their email. They had Excel spreadsheets that they were tracking things on, and this does all of it automatically.
Everybody going crazy because deadline is tomorrow and they have to accumulate all that information from across the org, right?
Yep.
Maybe not even necessarily within their own um, accessibility. They have to ask others, reaching out, who's managing Salesforce, right? How do I get that data? What is even the right question to ask about that?
Yep.
Wow, very impressive. Very
Yeah,
impressive.
and so one thing that's really interesting with this as well is how we actually built the process behind this. So I think we've covered our process engine a little bit. and this is a really good example of an application of that. And so basically what we were able to do was find this agent, but we were able to take an image that we were given of a workflow. So you can see I started this agent. I said, if I give you an image of a workflow, can you
Mhm.
build it as a process in this project? So
Yep.
here's what I gave it. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Just a simple image. And what it did was, all right. Well, first it ran into an issue, so I had to re-upload it. And then, right, it built it. So you can see here where it was working. It's building the process. It's building out definitions. It's validating it. It tested it, right? So it's doing everything that I would do having to build this. All right. And it built it for me. And then when
Yeah,
I was
so
done, I
we've come
said,
to the point where you can literally give the Vertesia platform a nappy sketch, right? That you did in a bar about an idea of an application or a process here in this case.
exactly,
Just throw it
exactly.
at it and it's going to build it out, not just like a whatever code basis, but a working application inside the Vertesia platform.
Yeah. So let me open this in a new tab because we'll come back to this screen in a second. But the actual process that it built is right here. So
Yeah.
this is the process that it built broken down in swim lanes. This is the process as a diagram, right? But you can see it's real, right? This isn't just, a mock-up. This is real. There's, you know, uh, real activities going on behind the scenes. There's real AI agents that are integrated with this.
Yeah.
And what's really,
And it
really
also
cool,
inferred about what the AI agents should do, right? It not only took the process chart and then like create nodes for that and make these lines and connections, but it also inferred about what the process chart really represents, what the agentic reasoning needs to be when you look at that agent, reviewing the purchase orders. It comes with a whole prompt inference, right, of what that task actually includes.
yeah, I mean it built the agent, right? So when it
Yeah,
was building this, it
yeah.
recognized what's crazy is if I've built processes where there was an existing agent in the project, and when the studio assistant over here is building it, it will see that and it'll go, "Oh, I see an agent that's perfect for this. Do you want to use that for this process?" Right? If it doesn't find it,
Yeah.
like in this case, I think it built it, it'll build its own agent, right? And so it builds the process, it builds the agent, and then it connects all the dots and it makes that into a real workflow. And then you can see here, I can change it. Okay. So I come in, I want to make
Yeah.
an edit to the workflow. So I asked it to, do something with step two, build a dedicated contract review interaction, right? So this is where it actually built out the agent. And then I had it tested. Okay. And so it did all of this in, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes, probably less, right? And this was a workflow that was built, and then we can integrate it with something like the app
And it's testing
that we're looking
itself.
at
Ah,
earlier.
see there.
Yeah, yeah, sorry, I'll go back. Testing itself, exactly. All right, you can see that right here. Um, yeah, it almost seems too good to be true as someone that used to build a lot of workflows. I still feel like it's too good
I
to be
mean,
true.
Johnny, really what we're showing here, right? It's an amazing app. First of all, yes, CLM might not be super fascinating, but the new way of building an agentic system, an agentic application basically by being able to use your anyone could do that, right? Anyone could just upload that initial workflow chart and then keep going from there, working with the assistant in order to build the application in the end that you've shown in the beginning, this the contract lifecycle management, bringing in all these ideas of connecting it out. The assistant will help you build all of that. But I think the key message here today, Johnny, is really that with a Vertesia platform, you can build whatever you need to build. Where
Yeah,
before organizations would buy a contract lifecycle management system, right?
yep,
And then they would have to make sure how to connect that with Salesforce, or is it still the people manually having to do that? So you would be buying into different software solutions, which each of them is serving only one purpose. What you're showing to us here is that with a agentic platform like Vertesia, you are very quickly able to achieve similar solutions without having understanding of how to really build applications, but have them built in the platform. And this is only one of them, right? You could have a creative library, you could have an approval system, you could have a data analyst, you could have um, uh, uh, a marketing analysis system, right? You have post-campaign analysis, whatever that is, right? It's all buildable because Vertesia is a platform and giving you, and maybe you want to show Studio Assistant on the bottom right, which allows you to in the Vertesia Studio here to build it out, right? To get
Yep.
your personal developer who knows the Vertesia platform and who builds it out. But the coming back to the life cycle contract lifecycle management platform, that is just an amazing app. How long would it take you to build this from scratch?
Um, I'm trying to remember back when we built it. I think it was, I mean, it was less than a week of me doing this. So we built this for uh, someone that was interested in doing contract lifecycle management with Vertesia. We said, great, let's show you what we can do. Uh, I built this in, I think, maybe 3, 4 days, and a lot of that was iterating. So we were able to get the kind of the bones in place, the framework set up, and the agents connected, right? And then it was really just refining from there.
Yeah.
So it took, I mean, again, it took just no time at all when you think about, let's go back 2 years, how long it would take to build an app like this. Well, one, you wouldn't be able to, and two, it would take, I mean, it would take a team of people, you know,
Yeah.
weeks or months to build a complex app like this. And I think,
A really good. Yeah.
well, I was gonna say, I think what I love about building stuff with Vertesia is what you were just saying. You can customize it so quickly. So the agents piece here, right? If you would have
Yeah.
seen this
Please show
app,
this.
if you would have seen this app a week ago, no, 2 weeks ago, there were no agents. And so I was able to build this in less than a day. I was able to connect agents from Studio that we were just looking at into this user interface and start building agents.
And stop right there, Johnny. I think this is one of the most important pieces, right? That the Vertesia platform provides to you. It is yes, you can have your Chat GPT, your Gemini, your Anthropic, whatever. You chat with it. Yes, it can create an HTML, or maybe it can even create an application that you somehow have to install into an infrastructure to make it run. But what Vertesia allows you to do is to not only build it automatically, but we are really connecting the agentic intelligence. And this is what the agents are, right? The agents are the workhorses, and we connect them to a scalable UI environment that can be easily adjusted and configured to the way that you need the application to work.
Yep.
Right. And I think this is one of the key things that just looking at this, yeah, you build an application, but really what you build is you build an application that's sitting on top of an agentic framework, right? And this is what the agents here are. So so you just included that?
Yeah, I wanted to incorporate agents into this demo, and so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and build this. And since, like you were just saying, like since we have reusable components, so if I want to run, the contract search agent, right, this is a reusable component that I can interact with. So you'll notice this is very similar to the assistant that we just had, right? And I can use this to run an agent. And so what I ran was just to test it. I said, how can you help me? Came back, told me what it can help me with. I said, what's the most expensive contract in the content store? Just making sure it can see everything in here. Right. So it gave me this. And then where it gets really interesting, and again, this goes beyond just when we were talking about extracting information versus actually grabbing something useful from that information. This is a really good example. I said, how much money would we save if we got a 5% discount on the top 5 most expensive contracts? Okay. And then
Hmm.
it actually found all the contracts,
Yeah.
it found the amount, it applied a 5% discount, and then it took the difference and it gave it back to me.
And Johnny, back to our previous topic, right? The context layer, right? This
Yep.
is not just like going into a rag repository and doing a search for some similarities of contracts that have a high number. So this is fully pre-processed documents into the actual context layer that the Vertesia platform creates the moment what you showed in the beginning during the intake automation.
Mhm.
That allows us to build agents that do that, right?
Yeah, so it might be worth showing just briefly if we come to this project. It might be worth showing the back end, right? So all those
Yeah,
contracts we were seeing, this is Studio. So just so everyone's crystal clear on where we are, right? We were in this application. Now we're in Vertesia AI Studio. And all those same contracts, right? All that preparation and all that enrichment that we were talking about, I think it was last week, right? That's all here. So you'll see the same contracts are in here. When we
yeah.
click on it, we can see, right, all the metadata. And there's a lot more behind the scenes. There's all the embeddings, right? There's chunking that's taking place if it's a large document. And so all of this is what allows us to power an application like the CLM, right? Same thing with agents, same thing with processes. And so since we have all these reusable components, right, that are already pre-integrated, it makes it really, really simple to build an application that can take documents and connect it to other systems and then incorporate, databases if we need to. And so it makes it really, really
Yes.
easy and simple. And I think that's why our jobs are so fun, is because we get to
Yes.
we have a cool idea and then we can build it within
Expanding on it, Johnny, and here
a
comes the
couple
next
days.
idea. What it would take you probably 2 or 3 prompts only to say, great, I like this on a document basis. Let's transform this into a structured database that
Yep.
is still referencing the original documents with all the context layer we created around that. But now I wanted to create a database structure index of all of this, right? And then taking it to the next step, creating dashboards from it, right? And I think it's 2 or 3 prompts away from getting there. You could actually do it right now,
Yeah,
right?
so we actually have that in the app.
Oh, you have that.
So
Perfect.
that was
Okay.
yeah. So no, but again, it was similar to the agents. We wanted
Yeah.
to we wanted to showcase the ability to use
Yeah.
structured data and not just contracts and unstructured data. So again, we built this out. It took less
With a
than a
few
day.
prompts, right? You just prompted this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And just to make sure we understand what's happening here. So basically the upload documents, pre-processing and stuff. Yes, it's a document repository, but now it's agentically controlled. Building a database on top of that, and now being able to create dashboards. In a normal scenario, talking back about the silos, you would have had to buy Salesforce, a lifecycle management system, and then on top of that, use less Power BI, right? Which will cost you a couple of $100,000 just to achieve all of that within one coherent platform, within 1 week, right, to production.
Yep.
I think that's worth noting here. We're showing these things and they go so quickly. Oh yeah, we built this, we have that. But it's just like seeing the amount of effort, work, and cost and time that it takes in the traditional IT world to connect all of these things in order to create a user experience or to create a solution. I think this is where just like yeah, the paradigms have shifted. And it's just crazy to see that, Johnny.
It's great because if you think about, right, I wouldn't have never built this application 2 years ago. It would have been way too much work. I wouldn't have been able to do it by myself, right? And this is really kind of not just empowered me, but I think empowered customers of Vertesia when they do have something they want to, oh, you know what? It would be great if we could have that. In the past, it was like, yeah, it would be great if we could have that, but that's unrealistic. We can't do it.
Yeah.
Now it's realistic. Now you can build
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
customer a contract lifecycle management app. You can build a data analysis app. You can build a marketing app. So you
You
can build all these different applications that you've always wanted and grab insights that you wanted, but you can actually do it now.
and that's why we're asking our clients when we go into workshops is to not just lift and shift their existing processes, right? We ask them to take 5 steps back and dream about the things that you were not able to do. This is why the organically grown processes in organizations have come to the point where they work the way they currently do. If
Mhm.
you take a step back, they evolved in this direction because things were not possible. Now, when you take 5 steps back and you realize, hey, I could have done this way early in the process and connect these data points and create these outputs, this is where the real change comes in, and this is where you realize it's not necessarily trying to build everything from scratch, but rethinking your problems from scratch, right? And not trying
Yeah.
to just replace piece by piece by lifting and shifting. Again, I like the similarity what we did back in the days. We had email servers, right, on premise, and we would shift them into the cloud, and then would say, "Great, we have cloud email servers." No, that's not data centers, right? So, but that's not what would solve your problem. You would still have to have the whole management piece around that, right? Now
Yep.
we live in a world where you just say add a new account and it's there and it's fully integrated into everything. That's something very similar that we're showing here. It's not a lift and shift, it's the rethinking of the process, the rethinking of the solution that is possible if you go back to the beginning of your problem.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, is people need to understand, like with this new AI technology and AI agents. I mean, I would say almost all processes need to be rethought. Maybe you
Mhm.
rethink them and they're great as is, but I think there's just so much more that we can do now with knowledge work, that we couldn't do before, that I think it's always worth going back to the problem that you're trying to solve, right? Because there's some I've met with some companies that are trying to redo the process they currently have with AI. And sometimes that's the right call, sometimes it's not. But the only way to really understand if it's the best way to be done is to do exactly what you just said, which is go back to the actual problem you're trying to solve, right? And start with a fresh set of eyes. Because I think this AI technology has just opened the door to so many things that just weren't possible before. And it's
Yeah.
exciting. It's very exciting. Frightening, but exciting.
Yeah, different. I wouldn't even say frightening. It's surely mind-blowing. It's changing the way that we work. Back to our very first episode, right? Changing the ways
Yep.
of working. And I just see every week there's something new that we're learning. And again, back to the skill, expertise, and knowledge. Yes, you can technically build this, but you still need to know what you do, right? So
Yep.
skill and expertise becomes even more valuable the more agentic deployments we do.
Yep. Yep. 100%.
Wow, Johnny, this is amazing. Anything else that's worth mentioning for the lifecycle management?
I was gonna show something, and I we've shown stuff like this before, but I think it's worth reiterating, is our search, right? I think this is probably one of our most used capabilities. Um, just because it's a universal problem of I have all this information in my business and I can't find what I'm looking for. And so what we've done with our platform is we've created a really sophisticated hybrid search that is going to use kind of the best of all approaches. So it uses semantic search, meaning, it's going to understand the meaning of what I'm looking for. So if I type in, right, biology, it's going to pull up stuff like, biosciences, biogenic. So it understands the meaning, but it will also pull up keywords, right? And so all of this is done through embeddings, and it's done in a way, not to get too technical, but it's done in a way where it's looking at the metadata. It's also looking at the full text. It's also looking at the title, right? So it's looking at all different angles of the content, in this case, a contract that it's looking at. And then you can actually layer on top structured search. So let's say we want to find, contracts that are over, 6.4 million. Maybe we want to find where, say, Jane is the owner, right? We can do all of that really, really quickly. And this is something that every customer of ours that is using this type of search had nothing but great things to say, because it allows them to find what they're looking for so much, so much faster. Um, so that would be actually, there's one more thing I'll show you. This is pretty cool, is the hierarchy of the
And it
contracts.
looks really cool, I have to say. This is a beautiful, slick app. It looks like this is fun to use.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I wanted to show this, I think, as the last piece, just because, again, this is all powered by capabilities that currently exist within Vertesia. So what we did was we structured the metadata in a way, or I had an agent, I had our studio assistant help me structure the metadata in a way that allows you to see the hierarchy between contracts. So now you can see how this contract relates to other contracts with this supplier? Right? Is this an addendum to a contract? Is this, an MSA of some sort? What does this actually, where does this actually fit? Not just in the context of the business, but in the context of our relationship with this customer. And so again, this is, I think, another good example of where context becomes really, really important, is being able to see, right, the big picture of the relationship with Globex Pharmaceuticals in this case. That's the last thing I wanted to show you, just because I think this is a really cool view. And honestly, when I built this, I was surprised at how quickly it came together, because it's a pretty
So
complex
this is
problem.
dynamically creating an index of documents that relate to that client.
Yes. So each one of these documents, right, the system has an understanding of, all right, is this a parent-child relationship?
Mhm.
Is it,
Mhm.
a child of a child? Is it a grandchild of that parent contract? So all that's put into the metadata, right? Because the system has the full context of what it's working with when it's ingesting these contracts. And so that's what we're seeing here is
Oh, cool.
I think of it as like a visual map of all the documents that you have associated with it.
Oh, you know what I really like? It's when one thing triggers the other. What I'm seeing in my mind, Johnny, is like a knowledge graph, right? That would start connecting not just documents, but that would start connecting topics within documents, like a mind map.
Mhm.
Maybe something worth talking about. I don't know. Exploring. I don't know.
I would love to build that out in this app. Yeah. Yeah. Like a more visual map where you can see like
Yeah, you ask for a topic and then
different
it
nodes.
builds
Yep.
out
Yep.
a map, a path, right? How this information across different documents would connect.
Yeah, I actually did that for unrelated, but I did that for there was a university we were talking to, or higher education we were talking to, and they wanted to see a map of the courses. Like if you take like the philosophy department, right?
Oh.
They wanted to
Hmm.
see a map of the texts that were used, if there were any books that were used in like one class that could also be used in other classes. And so that
Hmm.
was, I think that's a really cool use case that we can explore more. There's just too much to explore. I have a huge list of
Yeah.
ideas on the whiteboard next to me that I haven't had time to
The,
get
the,
to.
the problem at Vertesia is we can do all of these things now,
Yeah.
but we need to prioritize where the demand is, right? But then
Hmm.
also, Johnny, you and I were working at the a little bit at the forefront of things. Like we are given some time to explore and play and figure out what is next in the pipeline, what should come, and then test out things. So very grateful for that. But of course, it's the options are limitless, unlimited, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, thank you so much, Johnny. This was amazing new things. I hadn't seen this before. Thank you so much for your time of showing that to us. Next week, we chat a little bit about changing our format slightly. So we're going to introduce a new agenda item on our list of things we want to talk about. And this was episode 11. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Johnny. And see you all next week. Bye bye.
Thanks, Steph.